Hello and welcome to the second video in our series on how to create a strategy for business growth, part of the business training program from Horsham District Council. Now, in the last video, we looked at the type of growth we want to achieve. We thought about the information we'll need to be able to achieve that growth. We looked at the type of questions we need to ask in order to capture that information, and we adopted a layered approach to our analysis, starting from the wider environment and working inwards to our market, our customers, and then into our business. Now we need to organise that information. And the best and simplest way we can do that is by collating what we've researched into a SWOT analysis. Now, many of you will have heard of a SWOT analysis and may even have used it in your previous planning. But research into SMEs' use of strategic tools shows that many SMEs don't use it effectively and to its full potential. Very often, a SWOT analysis is populated by assumptions, without much serious research having gone into the business environment that reveals the opportunities and threats, or a decent amount of internal research and objective reflection as to a business's strengths and weaknesses. In this video, we're going to look to use it to its full potential. Now, as we briefly mentioned, a SWOT analysis should be populated by evidence, and it should be used after obtaining solid, credible information about your business environment in the context of the growth that you're looking to achieve. So we now know a lot about our market and our external environment and can now organise this information into these bottom two boxes, things we consider opportunities or things we consider threats. And an important thing to remember is that any particular piece of information could be both an opportunity and a threat. For example, if there's a growing number of corporate chains entering your industry, then that, of course, is a threat, as they can beat you on price, economies of scale, and marketing budget. But it could also be an opportunity, as you'll be very clear on how they operate and how you are different, such as the fact that you are independent and the different type of experience that you give to your customers. And this is something you can perhaps market to people, many of whom love to support local business. You may have a wealth of information from your research to go into these two boxes, so you may want to prioritise the most important ones or the ones that you think you need to act on. Again, we often don't have the luxury of time to create an exhaustive list, and we want to make sure that this practically works for us. Now, what about strengths and weaknesses? These are internal considerations, informed by your knowledge and your honest appraisal of your business. Again, ideally viewed through the lens of the type of growth that you want to achieve. For example, if you want to grow your offering by investing in new equipment, but are cash poor, that's obviously a weakness. If you're well established and have a long list of happy clients, that's a strength. It's likely that you won't have as many strengths and weaknesses as you have opportunities and threats, but hopefully you'll have more strengths than weaknesses. Very often, people tend to leave things there with SWOT analysis. They view it as an interesting exercise and then move on. But this is where it gets interesting, because now we can look at creating actions from this analysis to address each point. What will I do to take advantage of this strength in the face of this opportunity? For example, given the corporate chain that's entering the local market and its reputation for being cheap and cheerful, perhaps I can invest in some customer service training and promote my business's independence and the fact that my customers get a superior experience. Maybe I need to ramp up my social media activity so more people know I exist before this chain opens. Or another example, given there is this particular legislation on the horizon, this particular service that we offer will now be offered by loads more businesses and the service will become commoditized. I need to package up a superior offering to my clients that includes a wider range of services to stop them shopping around. This is what we call a TOWS analysis, which is, yes, essentially a reverse engineering of the word SWOT. We look at each opportunity, each threat, and come up with a potential action that we can take. And this is the true value of SWOT analysis, as it helps us to know what we're up against and what we're going to do about it. And what's more, it helps us to organise our plan for growth. Now, at this point, it's useful to revisit our definitions of growth and the type of growth we want, just to keep us on track. I have a list of potential actions that I could take in the face of opportunities and threats. I just need to make sure that the actions I've identified complement my definition of growth. It's important we don't get sidetracked by ideas that could address threats, for example, but aren't really aligned to our version of growth. And just checking this will enable you to determine your strategic priorities, your short-term, medium-term, and long-term actions. The final piece of the puzzle is putting some metrics in place to measure what growth looks like in a real-world sense. How many extra customers does it mean? Or if you're entrepreneur number one from our first video, who was focused on reputational growth in order to ultimately put his prices up, how are you going to measure reputational growth? What is the threshold for putting your prices up? When will you do this? Many people are familiar with the SMART objectives model that can help you organise this part of your plan, and it can really help you to put some specifics behind those growth targets, something to work towards that you can monitor. We need to make sure that any plans we have are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant to the growth we're seeking, and within a reasonable time frame. So, in terms of the process of planning for growth, we've filtered down all our information into workable actions, and we've prioritised those actions in order of their alignment to the type of growth we want. We know our market, we know our competition, we know our customer, and we know what we're trying to achieve. And finally, we have some measures in place to ensure that our targets are realistic and measurable in line with those SMART objectives. Now, it's about implementation. Now, this video series is about planning and review, but we will have a brief look at a study that covers implementing strategic plans within small and micro businesses. This was a 2021 study of performance and growth within small and micro businesses. And the study tells us that the key success factors of performance and growth are not the level of formality of your plan, but the clarity of your plan, the structure of your implementation plan, and the degree of leadership and evidence within the business supporting the implementation of that plan. Here's a summary of the key themes of that study on performance and growth in small and micro businesses. So let's explain the diagram here. In small and micro businesses, growth tends to be determined by the growth motivation of the business owner manager, or OM, which is in the box at the top. And this leads us back to the type of growth you want to achieve. You remember that in our two examples in our last video, entrepreneur number one didn't want more employees or too many customers or to have to offer more services. Essentially, he wanted a justified price increase, hence the focus on reputation. Entrepreneur number two wanted growth in all areas of the business within 3 years. So clearly, entrepreneur number two has more growth motivation than entrepreneur number one, and you'd expect to see that business become larger than the other as a result of that motivation. That's not to say entrepreneur number one's desired growth is not valid, it's entirely appropriate for his needs. The key requirements of growth, our blue boxes here, are strategic awareness, operational and management capability, and the ability to lead your business towards that growth. And that requires communicating your vision effectively, having good interpersonal skills. And that puts us in a good position to come up with an achievable strategic plan. As we get into the actual planning, the orange boxes, we see that planning has to be deliberate. That doesn't mean that it has to be formal or even put it into a document. As we said at the outset, there has to be some strategic intent behind the planning, and as long as it is directed towards the growth you want to achieve, whatever planning process works for you will be effective. Now, what about the implementation of our plan? Well, it has to be structured. The better the structure of the plan and the abilities of the one implementing it, the greater the chance of growth. This is where involving your team, breaking your project down into sub-projects and using those SMART objectives will be critical. If we do that, then everyone will know where we're headed, what we're measuring, and we can start to build momentum. Finally, moving on to the pink box, for the plan to truly succeed and to achieve high performance and that growth that we're seeking, we need to review how we're doing, to capture knowledge. We need our staff or the people within the business to feed back to us in terms of how the plan is going and what lessons have been learned. And we need to continue to keep our head up to see what's happening within our business environment. And that is the topic of our next video, where we'll look at the importance of strategic review in allowing you to track the progress of your plan, but more importantly, in allowing you to adapt to change.